Very good evening to you and welcome to all of our viewers on KIMA Action News' YouTube channel and to the third of our 2024 election candidate debates. Now, I'm John Kennedy O'Connor and I will be the moderator for all of our 9 debates we have scheduled. And tonight, the candidates for Yakima Commissioner District 3 have been invited to answer your questions on the topics that matter to you ahead of you casting your ballot this election season. We will welcome your live comments while we are on the air. To comment, you just need to click the subscribe button and you will see yours and other comments on the right of your screen as they appear. However, we will not be putting any of your comments to the candidates during the debate. Now, we are pleased to welcome to the studio, to my right, Republican candidate LaDon Lindy, who has been the commissioner for this district since 2020. And on my left is Elpidia Saavedra, who is also running as a Republican and who is currently the mayor of Toppenish, where she also serves as a councillor. Now, we've allowed up to 1 hour for each debate with 2 candidates, and the rules of this debate will be the same as any other. I will ask a question that the candidates have not seen or heard before, and the candidates will each have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted, followed by 1 further minute each for rebuttals. Now, we drew lots before coming on air to see which candidate would answer the first question first, and Mayor Saavedra was drawn. So after that, questions will be put alternately. Now, both candidates have already recorded a personal statement, which you will find on our YouTube channel. And Commissioner Lindy, Mayor Saavedra, I really want to thank you both very much indeed for being here tonight. And I'd like to start with the first question.
Great.
And the first question comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. What are your top 3 priorities? And if elected, how will you ensure you've made progress or indeed resolve those issues before the next election? And Ms. Saavedra, you have 2 minutes to answer.
Well, I have quite a few priorities, about 6 or 7. However, I think some of the bigger issues that we are facing here locally is the homelessness, the amount of people that are out in the streets that don't have anywhere to be. They need a lot of help. And one thing that I've learned is that there has been $55 million spent on homelessness, but yet the problem seems to have been getting worse rather than better. And I think that's an issue that we should all be having. We should be concerned with that, because if we can ensure that that money is being allocated to the best service providers, for service providers that can show positive outcomes, then we should have a problem with that. And that's really what I want to be focusing on, is making sure that we are fiscally responsible, that we are tackling the homeless crisis that we have on our hands. We also have safety and security that is also extremely important. We need to have and be able to retain our police officers. We need to be able to have and retain lawyers within our legal system here in our county. And those are all been issues that have not been resolved yet by our current leadership on the county level. And as a commissioner, those are things that I really want to be focusing on to ensure that the residents that are in our community can live a safe and life that they feel secure within their own communities with their families, and that law enforcement also feels like they're getting the support that they need, and that the people that live here also being listened to when it comes to their concerns. I have heard from people in the Lower Valley, farmers, farm workers and residents saying that rather than things getting better in our district, they have progressed to levels that are just not sustainable.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Lindy, you also now have 2 minutes.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, for priorities, priority number 1 for me is public safety. Some of the things we've been able to do to help on that in that way include standing up of a local crime lab. The county put in over half the money in this cooperative effort to include the cities of Yakima County and Yakima County to reduce the evidence turnaround time. We've been successful in that. In the last year, we've seen that evidence turnaround time for the things that the crime lab can do locally been reduced from 6 to 12 months down to 1 week. Another problem we do face on the public safety side, however, is an attorney shortage. This is something we are working to address. We've increased the pay to our attorneys in public service twice over the last 3 years. We've also are working or discussing a Rule 6 program so that we can help people that live here locally go through and become lawyers without going to law school, which is a lot cheaper route. We've had some, including Judge Rodriguez True, that has worked on the idea of trying to create a law school here at Heritage University. That's going to be a longer-term project, but I fully support that idea. On the issue of homelessness, I should mention this. Yes, we did spend about $55 million in the last 4 years on the homeless issue. Now, I will tell you this, the great majority of that actually had to do, it was COVID related, and had to do with rental assistance. So 45 million of that 55 million actually went to the people that had lost their jobs because of government restrictions during that pandemic. And so it kept them from becoming homeless in addition to being jobless. I'm also proud to report that one of the things we were able to do, because of the fact that we had strict guidelines in place to make sure that there wasn't any possibility of fraud, we checked for duplication where people might have been trying to get funds from a couple of different entities, that we were able to prevent $9.5 million in fraud from occurring. So,
Well, you're talking about that, but Mr. Fair, you have a minute now for rebuttal.
Oh, absolutely. I know that the current commissioner likes to boast about money that was spent, which is really what they're paid to do. However, I do want to focus on the millions of dollars that have been lost because that money wasn't allocated and the processes were not in place in order to secure that the most needy people could use those fundings. We were the only county to have money taken back from the federal government. And it wasn't by choice. They had to return the money because it wasn't used properly. And all that they had were just a bunch of excuses. And so the people that are the most underserved people, the people that are the neediest in our community, and I can understand because I have experienced homelessness. I know what that feels like. And that's something that we cannot tolerate. If any money is being sent back, it's not okay. And now, if that money had been lost by anybody else in any other position, job, they would have been fired immediately. And I'm asking the voters to hold people accountable.
You have 1 minute.
do have a rebuttal there because, again, and this is only telling part of the story. Yes, early on, we did send $1.1 million back of that rental assistance funds. As you might imagine, we had, when the COVID pandemic occurred, we had a great phenomenal increase in funds available. Our Human Services Department was really not staffed at that time to handle that money. But we were able to staff up. Once I became commissioner, we were able to hire more people. And not only did we use that money efficiently and effectively, we actually were able to receive $8.5 million more than was originally allocated to help with that rental assistance. So I think, you know, we could talk about the 1.1 million, but we forget the fact that we got 8.5 million in additional money. And I think that speaks for itself.
Thank you both very much. Appreciate the answers. Now, our second question tonight also comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. And the question is, the whole of Yakima County, not just District 3, encompasses a wide and diverse community. What personal skills and background would you bring to the role to ensure all of the community will be represented should you be elected? And Mr. Lindy, you can answer first, and you have 2 minutes.
All right. Well, I'll start with saying that I was a graduate of Granger High School. I've lived in this area since 1976. I've gotten a great affection for the people of the Valley, and the Lower Valley has been my home. I think as far as skills and background, first of all, I have a background in agriculture. Our economy is agriculture based, and so I have a great understanding of that, having lived that life. Once we sold our farm back in 2006, I went to work in management for Sunnyside Community Hospital. So I also have an experience in healthcare. Furthermore, I have experience in managing people, departments, and organizations. Yakima County is an entity which has 900 employees, and so I think I'm uniquely qualified in that manner because I've actually had that experience of working and managing employees as well as managing departments. On the other side, I'll also mention that I am bilingual. I served a mission for my church many years ago in Chile, and so I'm able to speak Spanish as well as English, which I think the people of our county appreciate, particularly in the Lower Valley. And I'll say that I think the support that I have and the work that I've been able to do is manifested by the fact that not only do I have the endorsement of the Yakima Republican Party, but I also have the endorsement of the home builders, the realtors. I have the endorsement of the Teamsters Union and the Yakima Nation. Now, that doesn't mean that we always agree and see eye to eye, but people know that they can have a conversation with me and I will listen to them.
Well, thank you, sir. And LP dear, you now have 2 minutes for your answer.
Well, my opponent says that he feels that people can go up to him and have a conversation with him and he will listen. However, he didn't offer that to me when my endorsement was revoked by the Yakima County Republicans. But that's water under the bridge. I'm really not going to spend my time discussing that. But what I do want to bring to mind is that I am a transparent person. I don't need to hide behind closed doors or exclusive meetings to have conversations about difficult issues. Now, the question was about our skills and our diversity and our background. Well, I represent the residents in District 3. There's over 70% Latinos. Yo soy Latina. I am a Mexican that was born and raised in Toppenish. I was picking asparagus outside of the city limits there. I was working in farm workers for all my life practically, and I understand the needs of the people within our district. I have a master's in business administration with a concentration in public health administration. My opponent is a person that I have heard is a failed dairy farmer. And because of his lack of qualifications when he was appointed as commissioner in 2020, we have had to pay the price for having somebody in a position that oversees over $300 million of grant funding. We have seen the misallocation of that money. We have seen the lack of leadership. We have seen the lack of administrative knowledge. We have seen the lack of financial knowledge as well. And I am asking the voters to understand that if we really want somebody that's going to represent us, truly represent us, we need to ensure that those people are ethical, servant leaders, not people that are going around doing sneaky things or trying to cause issues and not face problems directly. I'm the kind of person that's not going to hide. I will speak directly.
Well, Ms. Linda, you have 1 minute to follow up.
Okay. Well, this seems to follow a typical pattern where my opponent just seeks to gain or make up ground through personal attacks. But I will say that, first of all, let me begin with this. Puedo hablar español también. Lo he hecho por 40 años. I can speak the language. But I think the people that know me and work with me know me to be an honest person, someone I can trust, and they can trust, which is why I've gotten the support of not only the groups I've mentioned, but I have endorsements of leaders up and down the valley, whether they are mayors, city councilors, school board members, doctors, business leaders, farmers, and the like. So, and I appreciate that support greatly.
Ms. Saavedra, you have 1 minute to follow up.
Wonderful. I also have the support. I have the support of a very important group. I have the support of the Farm Bureau. And they chose to go with a candidate that they understand and they know will be honest with them, that will represent the needs of the farmers. My opponent likes to say that he is a farmer, and yet his own group decided not to back him up in his reelection. He's been given several years, and we have seen the outcome of those years. They have not been good. They have not been done in a way in which they are beneficial for the residents and the voters in District 3. I want to change that. And I understand that as a person who's going up against an incumbent, it's hard, especially when I am working, 50 hours a week. I'm the mayor of the city of Toppenish. I volunteer a lot with my faith-based community. And so I don't have the time to be getting paid to campaign like my opponent does. However, I'm doing the best that I can with the resources that I have. And I intend to continue to push forward doing that.
Well, thank you both very much indeed. I just want to remind you that subscribers can comment on tonight's debate. Our guests here tonight answering the questions, you tell us. You can click the subscribe button and you can type your comments on the right of your screen, where you see other comments from other viewers. But moving on now to our third question tonight, which again comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. An important part of running the county government is managing first responders and other emergency services. What have you done or will you do in this area to maintain the highest level of service? And Ms. Saavedra, you have 2 minutes to answer.
Wonderful. Well, I take this to heart because I have family members that are first responders. I also have family members that are in law enforcement, and making sure that they have the resources that they need to be able to provide the services that they need is extremely important. The Yakima County gets millions of dollars of funding, and very little of that has trickled down into District 3. I want to change that because our district is truly the district that has the most needs. We have the lowest income per capita. We have a very high population of ag workers, of farm workers, of farmers, of small businesses as well. And I want to make sure that I'm going to be supporting that, making sure that people that are first responders and emergency services have the funds that they need to be able to go down into District 3, to be able to respond in a very quick and timely manner. I remember a time in which my daughter was in an accident off Highway 97. When I got there, there were law enforcement officers everywhere, and I truly just felt a lot of respect for them, because when we, the public, find ourselves in a very difficult situation or in an accident, rather than running toward danger, we're running away from it. But our law enforcement and our emergency service providers, they are running toward danger. And I want to make sure that they are being heard, they're being listened to. I have a history of supporting law enforcement. The people in my city understand and they know. When I ran for city council, there were only 4 police officers. We have a full police force now, and we have made changes in order to ensure that we are being able to retain them. I work very closely with the police chief. He understands that we are going to do what we can, and I'm going to continue to work for the people and serve the people with the same strong work ethic that I have always had my entire life.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lindy, you have 2 minutes to answer.
All right, thank you. Well, first of all, on the law enforcement side, I'll say that I'm very happy to have the endorsement of Sheriff Robbie Udell. I think a lot of people know our sheriff, and he's highly regarded, so I appreciate his support, as well as the support and endorsement of other police officers and chiefs throughout our valley. On the issue of emergency services, I do want to touch particularly on the issue of ambulance services. This has been an issue that has been percolating since the time I became a commissioner 4 years ago. But one of the problems that we have in most of the county for the longest time is that outside of the area of the Sunnyside Grandview area, which is covered quite well with the Sunnyside ambulance service, we've had a problem in most of the rest of the county, in that we had 2 private companies that basically competed for the 911 calls. So as a result of that, there were no quality metrics in place to control where they might, station their ambulances. And so because of that, they kept most of the ambulances in the high volume area, namely right around Yakima, which is great if you happen to live in Yakima. But if you happen to live in Moxie or Natchez or West Valley, or even Harrow, White Swan, or Toppenish, the responses might not be as quick. So I'm very pleased with the fact that we were able to put out a bid, and finally, a few months ago, we actually signed a contract with one of those ambulance companies, AMR, to be the sole source agent that would handle all the 911 calls. Now, in response for giving them that sole contract, they had to be able to qualify for some quality metrics. They had to hire more staff. They had to purchase more ambulances. And we put in quality metrics that would guarantee that they had to respond to certain areas of the valley in certain times. So they had expectations that if they didn't meet them, they would be fined or lose money on that. I'm happy to report that that system went live 1 month ago. I had a conversation with an emergency physician here recently at Yakima Memorial, and he said the transition was seamless, and the indications so far have been positive. Time will tell as we look and evaluate these metrics, but it seems like a good step forward for us.
And Mr. Vedra, you have 1 minute to follow up.
Thank you. In the words of my opponent, the issue has been around for over 4 years, and they are just now, a month ago, providing some relief. And I think that's a problem. If we cannot provide services faster, if we cannot ensure to be pushing and demanding that services are brought to our communities a lot faster, not wait for an election year to have something to say, then we're failing at our job. I want to make sure that as soon as I'm coming in as commissioner, I will begin to push for better quality services to ensure that we are not waiting 4 years to bring the services that are needed to the people in the lower valley or in this county as a whole. That is not okay. That is a sign that the current commissioner is not qualified to be in his position. Just as I said, he wasn't qualified to be in there from the very get-go after he got appointed.
Mr. Lindy, you have a further 1 minute.
I'll just say that it's one thing to criticize when you're not in the shoes of the people that are actually in the position without understanding the process. Yeah, we'd like the process to move faster than it does, but the good news is that we actually have successfully completed a contract. It's in place, and we expect it to work well.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Let's move on now to our fourth question tonight. This question also comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. Both candidates talk about the importance of responsive government in the voter guide. Can you point to achievements in this area from your time in elected office? And that applies to your individual roles as County Commissioner and Toppenish City Councillor. And Mr. Lindy, you can answer first, and you have 2 minutes.
Very good. Well, I think responsive government is an important question, and I appreciate the fact that it was asked. We have addressed this during my time as county commissioner. We've done it in a couple of different ways. One of the things that I heard of quite regularly when becoming county commissioner was the fact that it took a long time to get a building permit in Yakima County. And so one of the things that we have done to try to address that is we actually put in place, to start with, customer satisfaction surveys. When people walk through our doors, we wanted to hear from them how things went, if it went well, if it didn't go well, and how we could improve. We actually had conversation with the building industry to say how can we improve this, and we took their suggestions. And I'll say though, although that's not exactly where we want to be yet, we have problems with hiring enough staff, but nevertheless, we're in a better position than we were 4 years ago. We've shortened that time for the building permit turnaround and expect to continue to work on that. Other things that we have done to help with a responsive government is to make sure, for example, we've changed the signage in our county government in the courthouse recently, so that we have Spanish signage up now, so that people that come in as Spanish speakers can find their way around the courthouse. We also know that it's important to have people that can interpret to receive government services. So we've actually, for the first time, put in place enhancements or bonus for those that actually can be certified as medical interpreters and pass those tests, so they can actually provide quality interpretation service for the people who walk through our doors.
And Mr. Vedra, you now have also 2 minutes to answer.
My opponent just said that after 4 years, they are not exactly where they want to be. And I have to agree with him 100%. Customer satisfaction surveys are great. However, they fall on deaf ears when they are not taking very decisive and specific steps in order to ensure that the processes that are being put in place are actually going to be beneficial. Spanish signs and in the county are great, and the county services are great. However, doesn't it make you question why it took so long? We have a very high Hispanic population here. Why is it that in 2024, we're getting Spanish signs barely getting put into the county level? I have the answer to that. And the answer is because there has been a lack of diversity on the county level. And that is what I intend to change. We need a representation for the Hispanic, Latino, and Mexican community there, not just a Spanish speaker, but someone who actually is diverse and part of that Hispanic community that has understood, that has lived what they lived through, and can relate with them 100%. I am the only candidate that can do that. And speaking a language isn't enough to make you qualify to represent that community. It's extremely important that we bring some diversity within the county level. And I am asking the voters for that opportunity. I am qualified. I have a master's in business administration with a concentration in healthcare services. I am a dental hygienist. I have worked in a public health clinic for over 20 years. I understand grant funding. I understand what it is to use it. I understand what it is to provide services at affordable costs. And I want to bring that to the county level.
And Mr. Lindy, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal to that answer.
All right. Well, I appreciate the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he said, we'll really have arrived at a society when we get to the point where we don't judge people by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. But speaking to representing Latinos, let me just say this. I have the endorsement of many Latinos across Yakima Valley. They include doctors, they include educators, they include businessmen, they include mayors, and they include 3 members of the Toppenish City Council that work with Mayor Saavedra. They are all Latinos, and they've all publicly endorsed me. So I think Latinos are pretty happy with the work that I'm doing.
And Mr. Saavedra, you have a further 1 minute for your rebuttal.
Oh, I'm so glad that Commissioner Lindy brought up my council. And what he is not aware of is that one of the 3 supporters that he had on my council has flipped. Councilman Garcia has told me that now he supports me and that he will be voting for me for commissioner. Isn't that great? And I think that really happened after we were able to sit down and have a conversation about the responsibility of commissioners and why it's so important that we have someone in there that's going to be looking out for the benefit of the city and the residents in the Lower Valley, Grandview, Mabton, Granger, Sunnyside, Toppenish. We all have very specific needs that are very specific to District 3. And we need a commissioner who cares, who's willing to take the funding that they control rather than giving $1 million to a swimming pool in Yakima. Why not use it in the Lower Valley for the district that they represent? Rather than giving money to other organizations, let's keep it local. That's what I want to do.
Well, thank you both so much. And I do want to remind everyone watching that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that will give you access to the live chat to the right of your screen. We hope you'll join in the discussion. Are our guests tonight answering your questions? You tell us. This is your chance to give some comment and feedback. Well, let's move on now to our fifth question tonight. And this question comes from an Action News viewer in our own neighborhood of Terrace Heights. The Commission is a relatively small body with just 3 elected members. How do you strive to find compromise on issues where you may not agree with your colleagues and find resolution? And Ms. Saavedra, you have 2 minutes to answer.
I have gone back and looked at all of the commissioner meetings since 2 years ago, and I have been staying informed because this is something that's extremely important to me. As somebody who has very long work hours at my job, I don't have the time that the current commissioner has to be campaigning on taxpayer money. It's easy for a local political candidate to be able to be out at all hours of the day, getting out publicly. I have to be at work, and then I still take the time to go and campaign in the evenings, trying to connect with voters, having very long days in meetings. But that is a sacrifice that I am willing to make because I want to work hard for the voters and represent the people of District 3. It says here, how am I going to strive to find compromise on issues that we may not understand? Well, you know what? There may be some challenges and there may be some disagreements. For example, in one of the meetings, I saw that Commissioner Amanda had said that she would not support any new buildings of low-income housing in the county, and I don't agree with that. I think District 3 has a very big need, and I would be supporting us bringing affordable housing to the Lower Valley. And if we have to have a sit down and have conversations and meetings about why it's important, then I'm going to push it. I will not be intimidated. I am not going to fold. I will continue to push and fight for the residents. I am not somebody who is going to be backing down or just having a pity party about not getting my way. I'm beyond that. I want to make sure that the truth is being said, just as I have shared tonight. I want to make sure that the voters know so that when they are voting for a commissioner, they understand very well who they're voting for, and they're going to ask the deeper questions and not just go by name.
And Mr. Lindy, you also now have 2 minutes for your answer.
All right, thank you. Well, first of all, my opponent's claim about campaigning on taxpayer money, she has no idea what she's talking about. She has no idea of the hard work and the long hours I put in on every day of the week, including weekends. And let me talk a little bit about the ARPA funding for just a minute. Because when we had the ARPA money come through, one of my priorities actually was to put that money to communities, including Toppenish. We got a request from the city of Toppenish to help with their water mains and do some replacement. And I was very pleased that, among other cities, I also pushed to increase that money to the city of Toppenish. We had, the way that was set up, we had a certain amount of money that was given for the body to work as a whole, and about $3 million for us to work on individual projects. So out of that $3 million, I received 200,000 of that actually went to the city of Toppenish. So as well as the other 500,000. So 700,000 of that money actually went to the city of Toppenish, on top of the funding for the flop cameras. As far as the functioning of the board, I'll tell you that right now, I think we have a pretty good functioning board. We don't always see eye to eye. We'll have conversations where we might disagree, but we'll come to a resolution, and sometimes it's a unanimous vote and sometimes it is not. But if we are on the losing side of the battle, we've said our piece and we move on, because that's what you have to do. We're all adults and we have to be able to work together.
And Ms. Saavedra, you have 1 minute to follow up.
I absolutely agree that we are all adults and we should have to work together, which I'm entirely for. And especially if we're going to do it in a very transparent, honest, and ethical manner, I am absolutely for that. My opponent mentioned money that had been given to our city. And again, I want to remind the viewers that that is their job. The money doesn't belong to the commissioner. They are responsible to ensuring that that money is being properly allocated. However, I want to inform the viewers of money that we weren't provided. We had been asking for years for money to help us with an extreme weather shelter in the city of Toppenish. Time and time again, meeting after meeting, not only with Commissioner Lindy, but also with their director of their health department, being told that there was no money and they couldn't give us more than $30,000 for the winter shelter. All the while, we find out that they had been sending back millions of dollars. They lied to us straight to our face.
Well, Mr. Lindy, you now have a minute for your follow-up.
All right, thank you. Well, and I think that shows it's a very unfortunate mischaracterization of that situation. When funding cycles go out, and I appreciate the concern over the homeless in Toppenish and other areas of the county, but we have a funding cycle that came out for a couple of years in a row, and messages were sent out, information was sent out to all areas of the county saying, we have homeless funds available. And we got a lot of applications throughout the county. We received no applications from the city of Toppenish. So what we heard in the end was, here we go, we're getting to cold weather and we need some help. That window, nothing had been presented to us earlier to be able to have, we got nothing from the city of Toppenish saying, here is an entity in Toppenish that can handle this. They're going to present a grant. We had no entity that came forward. We're fortunate that Camp Hope was able to come forward for a couple of years, and they came in and stepped in at the last minute. And no, I don't think we did have enough money to be able to do that an adequate job. It was more than $30,000, but nevertheless, that window had closed.
You have your time up actually now, Mr. Lindy. I apologize. We do need to move on. Thank you both very much. But moving on now to our sixth question, which comes from an Action News viewer in Yakima County. We hear regularly about the attorney shortage in Yakima that is causing a crisis of confidence in the local judicial process. What more can be done, and what will you do to alleviate this very serious issue? And Mr. Lindy, you can answer first, and you have 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. Well, I would happen to agree with the viewer that this is an important question. It's a critical question, frankly, because it cuts at the heart of our law and justice system, really at the heart of civilization or a civic society. I think that the COVID pandemic was something that actually made it worse because of the fact that we all of a sudden had this huge backlog of cases. And in the meantime, we had attorneys that were retiring, and we didn't have enough people in the system to actually replace them. What we've done in Yakima County is we've actually worked twice to increase that rate of pay to attract attorneys and to retain the attorneys that we have. We also put in a hiring bonus and a retention bonus. So these are some of the things that we've done. We've also put in place an internship program so that people that are currently law students have the opportunity to practice, take some time over the summer to work with our lawyers here at Yakima County with the hope that they'll get comfortable with it and want to come here once they've graduated from law school. Other things that we've looked at include a process which is called the Rule 6 attorney process. One of the problems we see with people going to law school is that often it's very expensive and they come out of law school with $150,000 to $200,000 in debt. That's tough when the private sector for attorneys will pay so much more. So on top of the other things we've done to increase the pay, we're working to try to create an incentives and a system where we can work with more local residents that want to become lawyers, that they can mentor and be tutored by local lawyers and become lawyers without having to go through law school, but they're able to pass the bar exam. So that's one thing we're doing. Also, I think a great idea, because this worked in healthcare, was a student loan repayment. This worked great when I worked at Sunnyside Hospital and bringing doctors to an underserved area like ours. And I think the same thing can work here for attorneys and bringing them here. So I went to the legislature last year and testified at several different legislative hearings to push that forward. And I think our odds are better this year, and we'll go back there again.
And Ms. Saavedra, you now also have 2 minutes for your answer.
Yes, well, we do have a shortage of attorneys, and that's something that's extremely critical. And I'm happy to hear that there are steps that are being taken in order to address that. I have been a supporter, and I also spoke out about making collaborations and networking with the professionals at the Pacific Northwest University, at Heritage University, to help bring programs that will give opportunities to our local kids, and to raise up our own attorneys, just as PNW is doing for dentists. There is also a all types of service providers, not only in public health, but even in the private sector. And that's something that we just can't continue to wait. My opponent mentioned the COVID pandemic. And, something that a lot of people may not be aware of is that the current commissioner went against the will of his residents in his district when he voted to shut down and implement the mandates in our county. As a result of his vote, he perpetuated the loss of billions of dollars of income that we could have had here locally. I would have never done that. I believe that there were other things that could have been done without shutting businesses down, without requiring churches to close. And I would have been a better listener to the people that would have elected me to be in that position. I don't want to go in there and do whatever it is that I want based on my own needs. I want to make sure that I am well informed, that I am connected with the residents, that I'm connected with the stakeholders, that I understand what it is that is needed, and to be able to make data-driven and supported decisions so that we have the best outcomes. That is how smart businesses are run, and I want to make sure that I do that.
Mr. Lindy, you have 1 minute to follow. I just want to remind you both that the question is actually about the attorney shortage. Mr. Lindy.
Well, I appreciate the question about the attorney session, but she just lied about my record. So I've got to address this. When the COVID mandates came in, I was not a commissioner. I worked at Sunnyside Community Hospital. And it was actually my concern about what was happening at my church, at my small businesses, and the things that I saw where we saw pot shops being allowed to stay open, but their churches were closed. The fact that Walmart could stay open, but our small business friends were closed, their shops were closed. And the fact that our kids were sent home. That's an absolute lie. I wasn't even in the position to do that. That was for that reason, those shutdowns, that I ran for office. And I made that very clear when I came to the Yakima County Republican Party, that was something that I was very concerned about and wanted to address.
Thank you, Ms. Saavedra. You have a further minute.
Well, I have the information that supports the facts that I'm sharing tonight, not just about the mandates and the lockdowns that were supported by our current commissioner, but also by the effects that it happened for that poor decision making. I understand that it makes him uncomfortable, but those are things that people need to understand and know so that they can make a wise decision when they're voting. Those are things that a lot of people are not aware of, and it's important that people are getting all of the facts exactly the way they are. And it's not something that can't be found. You can look it up. You can call cities to find out what funding that they're using. You can also look at newspaper articles and other articles that were written. Commissioner Lindy was appointed in 2020. And so, yes, he was around during the COVID mandates, and he had a lot of authority and say in what was happening in our county. And unfortunately, he voted the wrong way.
Well, I certainly want to thank you both very much, but let's move on to question number 7. This question comes from an Action News viewer here in Yakima. Has the solar moratorium prevented progress in making Yakima County an energy efficient county? What will you do to move this process forward towards resolution? And Ms. Saavedra, you have 2 minutes to answer.
Right. I have actually heard quite a bit about this. And again, these are issues that I just do not understand what is happening and why it's taking so long. There are people that are highly educated, that are stakeholders, that are from our county, that are from District 3, that have a lot to say and can share on the best methods on how to address the solar moratorium. It is something that is important that we look at to bring in the professionals, because some of the problems that I feel are happening on the county is that the commissioners are making decisions, but they are not bringing in the educated people that have the best information. I had been shared some information that There's some people that have been trying to discuss these issues. They have tried to get their message across. They have provided a lot of information to the commissioners that show the pros and cons. And really what they need to be doing is listening to their constituents and making sure that the decisions that they're going to make are going to be those that their residents and that their constituents feel is the best for their area. It may be different for District 3 than it is for District 1 and District 2, but it's extremely important that the district or the county area that's going to be the most impacted has a lot to say in the decision-making process. And as commissioner, I want to bring those people to the table. I don't want to be making decisions based on what I think is best without making sure that I am hearing all of the facts, data-driven, and supported by the professionals.
And Mr. Lindy, you also now have 2 minutes to answer.
Okay. The problem with this, the issue with the solar power, and the reason we're putting a solar moratorium in place is the state has actually put us in a very impossible position, which is, one, we have something that's called the Growth Management Act, which was put in place about 30 years ago. And what the Growth Management Act mandates that we do is protect prime agricultural land. A lot of the land that's being proposed for solar farms is actually in that agricultural land. I think there's a place for solar power in our county, but the problem is that the places that it's being put or being proposed to be put are often in ag lands. And the problem is that if the state is put in a place through what's called FSEC, the opportunity for power companies to actually just bypass the county and go to the state and have these approved, whether or not it's violating the Growth Management or not. They have the authority to supersede the Growth Management Act. We don't have that authority. So I think there's a place for it, but we need to, we've got some things that we're doing through WASAC, which is the Washington State Association of Counties, to address this. And part of that is going to the legislature this next legislative session. But I guess the other thing, I just need to go back to the whole issue of the COVID pandemic. COVID came here in about March of 2020. Okay, that's when it first started hitting here, and these emergency declarations from the federal government and the state government started being put in place by the governor and others, mostly by the governor. When I became county commissioner, we as a board of commissioners sent letters to the governor 3 times, 3 separate occasions, asking him to end emergency orders and to give us back our local control. Never at any time did I vote to shut down our county. The only thing that can be pointed to is a vote that happened to the health district when there was an issue about, well, I'll tell you what. I was coming here thinking we'd have a debate about the issues, which I think people want to do, but I'm getting attacked and lied about, and I think I'm done.
No, please, Mr. Lindy, please. I would really
think I'm
appreciate
done.
that you would stay. Okay.
I've had this for the last 3 months that my component, in an effort to make up ground, just feels like she has to continue to attack and do character
Okay, well, look,
assassinations.
can I just ask you both to pause for a moment? We are trying to answer the questions, and the questions have come from the viewers. I do appreciate how strongly you feel about this. I would request that you would stay. Ms. Saavedra, I do believe you have been made many personal attacks. I think Commissioner Lindy has answered the question about COVID, so I think that is something that we need to move on from and not bring up again. I think that's reasonable. Are you prepared to stay under that?
Well, I had moved on past
Sorry,
COVID.
Ms. Saavedra. He had the opportunity to respond.
Correct.
This particular question is about the solar moratorium. I
Correct.
think you both answered that particular question. Do you have anything else you want to say on the solar moratorium, or shall we move on to the next question?
I'm okay.
Okay, then we will move on to the next question. And I do appreciate the tension here. Let's bring it down a little bit.
I'm so sorry. I didn't get a chance to respond on that, on the solar moratorium.
But you answered first.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, getting a little bit crazy
Okay.
around here.
All right, well, let's keep the temperature down a bit. And I want to thank you both very much. And I do want to thank you both for staying. And let's keep this very professional. I think, in fact, you have been very professional.
I think
so
we have
far,
been
so I
too.
do.
And
But
I understand that truth hurts, but it's
well,
okay.
I don't think
Okay.
comments like that help, particularly Ms. Saavedra. So let's move on. I do want to move on to the next question. I want to remind everyone who's watching that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that will give you access to the live chat to the right of your screen. We'll hope you'll join in the discussion. But I'm going to move on now to our 8th question, which comes from an Action News viewer here in Terrace Heights. And since that's where we are tonight, this question seems most appropriate. Will you support the City of Yakima's plans to annex part of Terrace Heights? And if so, what guarantees will you give the people who live in that neighborhood? And Mr. Lindsay, you can answer first, and you have 2 minutes.
All right. Well, very good. I will tell you that when this proposal came forth, it was actually brought, it was petitioned, the city of Yakima was petitioned by some property owners in the Terrace Heights area to be annexed into the city. Because of the fact that this area is within the urban growth area of the city of Yakima, people that live in this area have the right to petition to be annexed. Now, I've heard from a lot of people that live in that area that say they don't want to be annexed. They're not interested in that. Some of them live within the area and some do not. But ultimately, this becomes, because they're in the urban growth area, as a county, we've actually expressed our concerns to the city that if this is something to move forward, these are some things and concerns that we have and some things they need to be aware of. But ultimately, it's up to the people that live there. It's up to the voters. It's up to the property owners in that potential or proposed annex area. So if they actually say yes, if it's 60% of the people or the 60% of the property value, rather, in that area of the county wishes to be annexed, then they have the right to petition the city to do that. And then it's really in the city's hands, and they have that opportunity to say yes or no.
Mr. Vedra, you now have 2 minutes for your answer, and I do want to remind you, let's focus on the question, which is about the annexation of city of Terrace Heights.
Right. I have been focusing on the questions very, very clearly and very specifically, so I'll continue to do that. When it comes to the annexation plans of the city of Yakima and their governing body are really the ones that are going to have that control. And it's extremely important that they hear from the residents that are going to be impacted. I think it's very important for residents to use their vote as their voice. The same way it's going to be important during this November election. If you are electing the people that you want to represent you, then you can do that in November. And the same thing happens when you have city governments, as in the city of Toppenish or anywhere else. So when it comes to the annexation aspect, I really can't say whether it's something that the commissioners have really any power to determine whether it moves forward. At the end of the day, the stakeholders, the residents, the people that live there are going to be the ones that should be pushing their concerns to the proper authority. And at this time, it is the city of Yakima. And then also just insisting, if you're going to be given the opportunity to vote, they do need to get a percentage of the people that live there in order for it to pass. And if that's something that you have an opportunity to do, then I would probably encourage you to get out, speak to your neighbors, speak to the people that are going to be impacted, look at the pros, look at the cons, and then continue to move forward. That way, things can get done in a way that is mutually beneficial, not only for those that are going to be impacted, but also for the decision makers.
Ms. Linda, do you have anything else you'd like to say? Anything to follow up? Okay,
No
anything you want to follow up on that one?
Nope.
Okay, so then we will both move on to our 9th question. And thank you. Our next question comes from an Action News viewer, also in Terrace Heights. Now, without prejudging the investigation, a recent scandal in the county coroner's office has badly damaged the reputation of the county systems. What steps will you take, will you be looking to take to ensure the risk of any such situation rising again in the future? And Ms. Saavedra, you have 2 minutes to answer.
It's extremely important for the voters to understand that elected positions and the people in those positions are held accountable by you, your vote. And this position, the county coroner's position, is an elected position. It's going to be extremely hard to force a removal of anyone in an elected position. That is why when people are given the opportunity, they need to ensure that they are really looking at the people that they're putting in these positions. It's extremely unfortunate and sad what happened here. It really hurts to think about not only the people that are involved and the families that are involved and those that have been injured by the actions that have been taken, but at the end of the day, we need to understand the processes in government and the processes on how they get applied and how they work. On the county level, the only people that can hold commissioners accountable are the voters. There really isn't anything that can be done if things are not working out and the voters are not happy. The same thing with this county coroner issue. If the voters come together, they may be able to begin a process to be able to remove anyone they feel hasn't done their fiduciary duty. And so with this case in particular, I would encourage those people that understand what needs to get done to take the steps necessary to ensure that their concerns are addressed.
Now, Mr. Linda, you also have now 2 minutes to answer.
All right, thank you. Well, I would agree that this is a very unfortunate situation. It's something we'd rather not see and rather not have to face. I feel that the coroner, well, we as commissioners feel that the coroner has abused the public trust, and we actually have, as a commissioners, we actually did a press release yesterday where we formally asked the coroner to step down, to resign. You know, we can't hire or fire him. That's, as Ms. Vader said, that's the realm of the voters. They're the ones that hire and fire their elected leaders. But we did send out a press release asking him to resign. We sent a letter and an email to him stating that. We also had the sheriff and our county auditor sign on to that as well, and hope others will in the future. But I'm hoping that that he will take a look at that. We feel at this point his resignation at this point really is in his best personal interest with the personal issues he's dealing with. We also feel it's the best interest of the coroner's office, Yakima County, and our voting public, to be honest. I don't wish any ill will to the coroner. I wish him well dealing with the issues he's facing right now, but feel that it's in nobody's best interest for him to continue once he comes back.
If you wouldn't mind, actually, I'd just like to ask for your 1 minute rebuttal, because I'm relatively new to Yakima. I've only been here about 18 months. Would you both support a recall situation in this particular case, or does a recall option exist?
Yeah, I truly believe that it does. I believe that it does exist. If the residents begin the process and they get the necessary signatures, I believe they can recall the coroner. And yeah, I would support it. I think sometimes people need to be given the time and the opportunity to heal and to get the help that they need. And if that's something that needs to be done and the voters desire that happen, then I would absolutely support that.
Mr. Linden, another minute?
I would also support, I mean, my first wish, really, to be honest, is that he kind of spares us all the pain, including himself, of going through that process. But I've had people who are constituents in the county ask about the recall process, and I've actually directed them to the elections office, because there is a process, there is a certain amount of signatures they have to gather. Then if they get that, then it's put on the ballot. And I would support that recall if it comes to that. But I'm hoping actually that it doesn't have to come to that, and he will see that the damage to the public trust that he has created, and in his interest and our interest, will just simply step down.
Well, thank you both very much. I hope you don't mind me interjecting my own question there, but I just think that might have helped the viewers there, etc. Sure. Now, this one's going to be a bit of a doozy. So, the final question in this election candidate debate comes from an Action News viewer in Yakima. There has been some contention between you both during this campaign. Politics can be very negative at times, especially at the national level. Could you each say or share something you admire about your opponent? Mr. Lindy, you can answer first.
All right, very good. I can, actually. I appreciate Mayor Saavedra's family values, her Christian values. I appreciate the fact that she's involved with her church and her family support her in her campaign. It's, when I've gone to parades and other events, her family's there supporting her and helping her out, and I think that's great. And I know I appreciate it when my family comes out and helps me in those events.
And Mr. Saavedra?
Yeah, I really am. I admire how a person that was appointed to be county commissioner has been able to retain his position for as long as he has. And also, I think that just from one political candidate to the other, it's important that we do take into consideration the amount of time and money that it takes and dedication. And so I have a lot of respect for people that do run for political positions. It's not an easy thing to do. It's extremely stressful. And I really hope that after all is said and done, regardless of the outcome of the election, that we can continue to work together with the county, not only as the mayor of the city of Toppenish, but also as as somebody who works very closely with the county commissioners, because our cities do need a lot of support. And I just want to make sure that people know that regardless of what has been said and done, I'm sure that we will both continue to move forward and do it in the best capacity that we can.
And Mr. Lindy, you have one final minute to follow up.
Oh, Well, I guess I would just simply say thank you for the opportunity to be here. I appreciate the support that I've had from the voters of Yakima County over the course of the last 2 campaigns and this campaign. It's really an honor to serve in this position. It's I feel that one thing I've learned being in government is the wheels of government turn more slowly than we wish they would turn. But I think, although sometimes that's frustrating, there's a reason for that too. Our founders long ago put in checks and balances in government. You have 3 branches of government. You have levels from federal and state and local, county and city. And sometimes it complicates it and makes it slow down. But I think the saving grace of that is really that it causes us to slow down, deliberate, take our time, and really work through issues. So I appreciate the opportunity I've had to work on behalf of the citizens of Yakima County, and I would appreciate their support as the ballots are coming out later this week, I believe. Thank you.
Yes, they are. I think Monday actually is the day they're actually mailed. So, Ms. Saavedra, you have a final 1 minute.
Great. Thank you so much. I also want to just say thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with the voters and share our views and also our plans on how to represent the voters and the constituents of District 3 and as a county a whole. My history, experience in education, not only in politics, but also in public health. And as a Latina local leader and someone that has just really dedicated her life on serving the community, it's important to me that the voters understand and know that I will continue to work for them with the same strong work ethic that I've always had. I've overcome a lot of challenges in my life. I have overcome people telling me not to run for commissioner, just to kind of let things be as they are. The good old boys and just be ready and to wait for my opportunity. Well, I didn't agree with them. And so here I am, and I'm looking forward to serving.
Thank you very much. Well, that's all of our time for our latest 2024 election candidate debate. This is quite a fiery one, a little bit more unusual. I want to thank, though, very sincerely, both Mayor Elpidia Saavedra and Commissioner LaDon Lindy very much and sincerely for both being with us tonight. And thank you for taking our viewers' questions. And I want to thank you for watching and all of your questions and comments. We hope you have found this discussion helpful in making up your mind for the upcoming election in this race. Our next debate is tomorrow, Wednesday, October 16th at 7 p.m, when the candidates for Legislative District 15, Representative Position 1, will be invited to join us here in the KIMA Action studios. We will once again be live on our YouTube channel at 7 p.m. We hope you'll join us tomorrow. A very good night.